Hello, hello. Doo, doo. Let's see if anybody can hear me. Would somebody mind leaving a quick comment? Hello, hello. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, I'm just going to wait about another 2 minutes. And then we're going to get started. In the meantime, anybody has any specific questions? The topic that I thought I was going to start with today is feeling something that you've never felt before. A lot of people are talking about how their baseline emotion has been something maybe stuck in lack, stuck in struggle, stuck in hardship. And when we're talking about embracing gratitude or abundance or something that they've not typically embraced, that they're really, really struggling with that. So that's going to be the topic for tonight. But I definitely want to hear your questions. And I'm going to put a link up. Hold on, let's test this link and see if this link works. Hold on. Hold on. I'm trying to find a link that I can post to have people join. Hold on, just give me 1 second here. Invite. There we go. Okay, I just posted a link in the comments that is a live link that you can join me on stage. So in just a little bit here, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. Excuse me. I will invite people up after I give a little bit of an explanation here. So like I said, I want to talk about today, one of the major questions that I've had people talk about is they're having a hard time feeling something that they've never really felt before. Like, how do I feel abundant when there's 28 cents in my account. And so we're going to talk about that right now because I think this is probably one of the things that trips people up, probably more than anything else in this whole manifestation conversation, this whole manifestation progress. How do you feel something that hasn't happened yet? So hang with me for just a couple minutes because by the end of this, I want to be able to give you some techniques that are actually useful, not just a good speech. I hear people all the time say, okay, I know I'm supposed to feel abundant. I'm supposed to feel grateful. But look at my circumstances. I'm behind in the mortgage. I can't buy groceries. It's all negative. And it's been like this for years. I look at my fridge and it's empty. How am I supposed to feel something that is completely fake, that is not real? And I get it. I genuinely get it. Because when you're in survival mode, stress is running the show and your nervous system isn't interested in visualizations. It's interested in surviving. That is literally its job. So first, if you've ever tried to just feel grateful and it felt fake and it felt stupid and it didn't work, that is not a you problem. That is not a mindset failure. That is not a manifestation failure. It's literally your biology doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So let's kind of take the pressure off that you're doing it wrong, that you don't know how to do it, excuse me, that it feels weird. Yes, of course it does. You've been stuck in survival mode. So obviously this is not going to be the most comfortable, easy thing to do. But I do want to say something that might come off a little bit weird. We've all heard fake it till you make it, right? Fake it is actually fine. In fact, faking it is the whole point. And I know you might be rolling your eyes at that. And I'm not talking about pretending that your problems don't exist. I'm not talking about putting your head in the sand. I'm not saying gaslight yourself, la la la, everything is so fine. No, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about, I want you to do something that your brain actually does constantly without you knowing. Because here's the thing. Your conscious mind knows that you're faking it. Your unconscious mind does not. Your unconscious mind believes you even when you're faking it. That's the beautiful, complicated thing about your head. It cannot tell the difference between something that you vividly imagine, and something that actually happens. So I want you to do an exercise here with me for a second. I'm gonna give you an example. I want you to all close your eyes for a second and actually do this. Don't just listen. I want you to actually do this. And I want you to imagine this bright yellow lemon that's been cut in half. And I want you to smell it. You smell that citrus, and I want you to maybe squeeze it just a little bit. And I want you to imagine that you can see the juice coming out of this lemon. Maybe you have a cut on your hand. You can actually kind of, you know what it feels like when it kind of burns because you put lemon on a cut. And as you're smelling that, I want you to imagine that you just bite into this lemon. I want you to just really bite into it. I want you to imagine the juice is running down your chin. Oh, it's sour. And your lips are puckering. Okay, so are you salivating right now? Because most of you are. And there's no lemon. There's no lemon anywhere near you. But your body responded as if there was. And that is not magic. That is how your brain works. It responded to the idea of a lemon, the image of a lemon, the feeling in your throat of a lemon. So when I tell you to practice feeling abundant before you are abundant, I'm not asking you to lie to yourself. I'm asking you to give your brain a signal to work with. Now, I'm going to go a little bit on a rant here too, because we will say things like, this is just how I feel. We feel stuck. We feel lack. We feel worthless. Whatever it is, we use the word feel. And somehow, because we're saying the word feel, we somehow feel entitled to make it legit. as though we feel this way, therefore it is true. We feel this way, therefore it is not changeable. And that is inaccurate. I want you to be analytical here. I want you to be logical here for a second. We feel a lot of things that we know, perhaps even logically, they're not true. For example, you might feel worthless or feel unloved. Let's say you feel unloved. And then logically, you might know, well, I know that's not true because my mom loves me or my dad loves me, or I know my kids love me, but you feel unloved. Just because you feel it doesn't make it true. Now, it feels true, feels real. I get it. I'm not denying that. But just because you feel it doesn't make it accurate. Maybe that's a better word. That's probably a better way to say it. Another thing, too, we're using this word feeling. Here are some synonyms for the word feeling: energy, frequency, vibration. When we use these words, we are literally talking about the same thing. So when they say raise your vibration, people are like, what do you mean raise my vibration? It literally means change your emotion. Excuse me. Literally means change your frequency. How is that possible? Because another thing about feelings, they are a chemical response in your body. So you probably understand that the feeling stress, for example, actually has a chemical name. It's called cortisol. Or when you feel connected to somebody, what is that chemical called? That chemical is called oxytocin, right? We have happy chemicals. We have depressed chemicals. We have chemicals that are actually what create this feeling in your body, this frequency, this energy in your body. Going back to the beginning, when I talk about faking it or making it, that is why you can change how you feel. It is changing a frequency. It is like changing a radio station. You can change your chemical state. You can change your feeling. You can change your frequency. Okay, so let's get back to just I want to give you another couple of other examples. I thought about another one I jotted down that I wanted to say to you too. If you think about actors for a second, going back to the brain doesn't understand the difference between imagination and reality. Good actors do this. Someone who wins an Oscar, they're not just parroting off lines on a script. They embrace the character. They can maybe cry real tears. Maybe their heart rate goes up in a scary scene. You know, their body is having a real response to a fictional situation. There are actors that stay in character for months and months, and their bodies, blood pressure, heart rate, stress, maybe tone of voice, all respond to the character's emotions, not the actor's actual reality. In fact, that can sometimes be a problem because there have been instances where maybe somebody couldn't step out of the character. Now, obviously, I'm not saying go full method actor with your life, but what I am saying is, if a person can cry real tears over a made-up character in a made-up movie, why can't you generate a real feeling of peace, enough, gratitude, even if your circumstances haven't caught up yet? You can. You absolutely can. And your nervous system will respond. That is what I want you to understand. Perhaps not in the instant. This is a practice. This is something that you're going to get better at. So, how do you actually do this when you're sitting in a hard moment? In fact, before you do this when you're sitting in a hard moment, I would actually suggest that you do this when you're calm. If you try to do it too much in a stressful situation, you won't have the focus. But if you do it first thing in the morning, I talk a lot about taking advantage of those 15 minutes first thing in the morning where your brain is in that theta state. So do it in a nice calm state. And, you know, don't try to feel rich. That might be too drastic of a change to do right now. It's too much distance between reality and what you want to create, where your world actually is. So start smaller. Think of something, anything, that is genuinely okay right now. Not fabulous, not mind-blowing, just okay. Okay. We're just going to start with okay. We're going to take some baby steps. Maybe you have hot water. Maybe somebody texted you today. Obviously, you're watching this. Maybe that means you have a phone, a computer, an internet connection, and on a global scale, because I'm sitting here in Ecuador. That's amazing. That's one thing. Just find one thing. So I'm going to sit here for a second, and I want you to find your one thing. Find your one thing. And as you find that one thing, I want you to take about 20 seconds. Well, I check the comments here really quick. Okay, take about 20 seconds, and I want you to just kind of sit in that feeling for a second. It might have taken you a minute to find something to be grateful for, something to be okay. But you know what? Just let yourself be just barely okay for a second. Not because 20 seconds changes your life, but because you're teaching your nervous system that it's safe to notice good things. You're building the muscle. Gratitude isn't a feeling that you have, it's a feeling you practice until it becomes a feeling that you have. It's a state of being. All right, so I want to specifically do gratitude now. Gratitude, I've talked in some of the videos about this heart coherence. It's feeling something with your heart, and it regulates the frequencies between your brain and your heart. Gratitude is a really good way to access that. So I want you to think about something that you're grateful for. It doesn't matter what it is. I want you to think about something that you're grateful for. Maybe you're grateful for your cat. Maybe you're grateful that you have a roof over your head. Maybe you could be grateful. I don't care. It does not matter what, because we're focusing on the emotion. So find one thing that you could just be a teeny bit grateful for, okay? You find that thing, and just kind of let yourself just feel grateful for just a second. Just maybe you just get a glimpse of it. Maybe you just kind of barely feel it just a little bit. And I want you to sit with that for just a second. Just sit with it for a second. And maybe this is hard, and that's okay. That's okay. Okay, I'm gonna explain a little bit more here, and then we're gonna come back to these exercises. We're gonna practice it a couple of more times. I want to point out that part of the reason why this feels so awkward is because we have let our emotions go on autopilot for years and years and years and years. Most of us don't actually sit down and force the brain. We do not take control of our brain and decide, no, this is the direction we're going. And this is why it's almost like an atrophied muscle, and it's difficult because you haven't done it before. The reason why it feels awkward is not necessarily because it's not true. So if you worked through me with the gratitude exercise, you would probably logically say, yeah, I feel grateful for my cat or my job or whatever, my dog licking me. It doesn't have to be anything big. You could probably say, yes, I'm thankful for that, but the feeling feels really weak. Okay, yes. Here's the reason why. If I go to the gym and I lift weights with this arm every single day, this arm is going to get really strong. And if I never lift weights with this arm, it's going to look like this. It's going to be a pencil arm. So as you're working with these energies, the energy that you access the most common is going to be the one that boop, 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 boop. You've got those neural pathways going. It's going to be the frequency. It's going to be the feeling. It's going to be the energy that you access the easiest, and it juts up super strong, super fast. Okay? It's because you have this atrophied gratitude feeling over here. You have this atrophied love feeling, enough feeling, whatever. Because most of us spend more time in the negative emotions than we do in the positive emotions. And therefore, the brain doesn't as easily access it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true. Doesn't mean that it can't be true. It means that we are not doing exercises on both sides of our arms. We're doing it with one specific emotion. We become comfortable to that. That's the other challenge that sometimes we have. You become used to doing something and it feels comfortable, even if it's terrible. So lack becomes so familiar, you forgot what abundance feels like. You forgot what enough feels like. And that's a problem. It means that our brain is not the balanced version of our brain that we want. Again, this is a practice. We're going to be practicing this until the feelings start becoming really real. So give me just 1 second. I'm going to check the comments. I want to know, does anybody have a specific comment? I want to know how that exercise felt. Anybody? Okay. I'll get better at the live videos, I promise. All right, so let's address the skeptics in case there's anybody that's a skeptic. I have heard people say, okay, this whole faking thing sounds like toxic positivity. I swear I didn't hear the word toxic positivity 5 years ago. This is like some new buzzword or something. And no, it's not. And here's the difference. Toxic positivity says, woohoo, just be happy, good vibes, blah, 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 and completely ignores your real pain. What I'm talking about is saying, excuse me, your pain is real, your situation is real, and your brain is also a tool that you can learn to work with even inside that situation. Both things are true at the same time. You're allowed to have 28 cents in your account and feel grateful for those 28 cents at the same time. You're allowed to be struggling and you're allowed to practice reaching for a better feeling. Okay, there we go, William. It felt like I wasn't being honest. Okay, so were you feeling gratitude for your ex? Were you feeling gratitude for somebody dying? Okay, you probably had a very weak version of that, and I get that. What can you truly, truly, truly be grateful for? What can you, in fact, do you want to come online, William? Do you want to come online? Come on, somebody has to come online. Hold on. Hold on. Let's talk a little bit more about this. It feels like you weren't being honest. Okay. You know how when winter has been going, you've been in winter, it's been super cold. I don't know, I'm in Ecuador, I forget what winter's like. And you're wearing pants and you're wearing long sleeve shirts. And then you go and you put a short sleeve shirt on and it feels weird. It feels different. It's the first time you've worn shorts. It's the first time you've worn a tank top and it feels awkward, okay? It does feel awkward because you're literally telling your brain to generate a chemical it is not used to. Okay, there you go, William. Right now you're grateful for a new job. All right, I'm going to walk you through this, okay? I want you to think about that new job. I really want you to think about that new job. And I want you to go ahead and let yourself feel like, oh my gosh, what a relief. How great that feels. Can you even feel 1% of gratitude for that? Just let yourself just sit there for a second and think about, oh my gosh, I have this job. I am grateful for this job. Now, are you exaggerating a little bit? Possibly. And that's okay. Your boss isn't here. I want you to go ahead and just let yourself think about, wow, Is this an improvement? Are you glad that you have this job? Are you truly grateful for it? You know, eliciting what we want to be grateful for, I think, is a really key point. We can try feeling grateful for something, and that doesn't usually work until you've got this muscle trained really well. Like, if I want to be grateful for, my mother-in-law, that my ex-mother-in-law, I'm going to struggle with that. So make sure that you can actually say, you know what, actually, I am grateful for this. Actually, this is a really good thing. As soon as you can start feeling that, that's the feeling that you're going for, okay? Now, if you can't feel grateful for the new job, William, maybe we could try something else. Is there anything else that you can be grateful for? You see, you're teaching your brain how to vibe up that chemical production of gratitude, okay? And again, this is like putting a shirt on for the first time after you've been... Okay, all right, hold on, I'm reading your comments here. Maybe I'm confusing grateful with excited. Okay, what can you, actually, excited is not necessarily a bad thing. I think if you think about all of our emotions like a box of 64 crayons, colored crayons, I think it's probably a good idea to learn to choose which emotion you want to feel at will. That's a super helpful tool. But let's stick with gratitude then for a second, because excited is good too. But let's stick with something that you can be grateful for. What can you be grateful for? A pet that loves you? A kid that loves you? Depending on their age, that might be kind of difficult. Maybe even the simple things. Maybe we can just be grateful that, literally we had enough food for the day, because I live outside of the United States. There are plenty of people that don't actually have food for the day. There are people who have to wash the same clothes every day because that's the only pair of clothes that they have. Is there anything that you can feel truly, truly, truly grateful for? Maybe it's something like, well, my parents are in their 70s and they have pretty decent health. I'm glad for that. I'm grateful for that. Can you think of that? Does that help? Hold on, I'm checking the comments again. And so the rest of us, go ahead and let yourselves follow along with this for a second. Maybe we live in the land of plenty. Maybe part of the issue is that we don't spend enough time thinking about things that we're actually grateful for. And again, you're not going for this, oh my God, I'm crying, I'm so grateful feeling. You're just going for this little bit of a feeling like, you know what? Yeah, I'm grateful. Yeah, I can let myself feel good about that. I am appreciative about that. There are physical benefits to developing gratitude and developing appreciation. I read once, I don't have notes in front of me, I don't have a script in front of me, so I might mess this up, but your digestion is like 65% better or something like that. Don't quote me on that one. Ridiculously better if you express gratitude and appreciation before you start eating. Gratitude is something that benefits your physical body for starting to appreciate. We all know that stress sucks. Okay, how can we use this method to clear the long-standing pattern of being in debt? Okay. Our energy is a magnet. Like attracts like. Same attracts same. I want you to forget about the theory. I want you to forget about everything that you've ever heard. And I just want you to focus on that one sentence. Like attracts like. A magnet will attract the metal. The magnet will not attract plastic. I remember a long time ago, my dad had a metal detector. And there were like different settings on it. So if it was set to aluminum, you'd swing it along the beach, and guess what it would find? It would find aluminum because those frequencies match. It would pass over the gold if you had it set to aluminum, and vice versa. If you had it set to silver, it would pass over the aluminum in the gold because frequencies match. If you have an oil stain in your driveway or an oil stain on your clothes, you do not get it out with water. You have to use an oil-based product because like attracts like, period. Okay? So how does this work with debt? Forget about the debt. What feeling do we have? If we have a feeling of irritation, we are going to attract irritation. If we have a feeling of anger, we are going to be pissed off at everything because we will attract things that make us angry. Have you ever had a bad day and everything goes wrong that day? What do we say? You woke up on the wrong side of the bed? You wake up in a bad mood and then all of a sudden the whole day goes to shit? You know, maybe you had an entire year, months that just absolutely go to shit for no reason. Well, there is a reason. It's because like attracts like. Whatever energy that you have is the energy that you get more of. This is the most important concept. In fact, if this is the only thing that you take away from this, this is probably it. So when somebody is in debt, what does that feel like? Probably feels like desperation. So let's call desperation frequency 456. If you are vibrating frequency desperation 456, you are going to attract desperation 456. This is science. That is the simplest way that I can think of to explain it. Like attracts like, frequencies will attract each other. Rarely is somebody think about the most negative person that you know. Think about the most negative person that you know. Think about all the crap that happens to them. Why does that happen? It's because their magnet is attracting more of it. Here's the other flip side to that too. When you have a magnet, what happens when you flip that magnet to the other side? Well, then all of a sudden it's not attracting, it's repelling, literally. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen these magnets you flip the sides and they're literally, you cannot force them together if you try? Okay. Energy, science, mathematics, this is how it works. When you are in a place of lack, desperation, terrible, suck, it is almost impossible to attract good things to you. In fact, you are probably repelling things from you. That's the first concept. Here's the other point that I really want you to understand about this too. The human brain is like a satellite. So it is receiving literally 11 million bits of information. There are even some people who say up to 22 million bits of information per second. Your reticular activation system, your brain filter, can only handle about 40,000 bits of information per second. So you've got 11 million and we're only able to filter 40,000. That literally means you are ignoring 10,960,000 bits of information that you just went, nah, never mind, okay? How does your brain pick which 40,000 bits of information out of 11 million to choose? How do you pick that? Your brain is also sorting for things that match. Your brain is sorting for things that match. You go, okay, people suck. Look at this sucky person. Look at this sucky person. Look at this sucky person. Here you go. Your brain's job is to prove you right. Okay, what about the 1,000 people that your brain just ignored? Now the same is true with opportunities. That's why, there's no such thing as luck. Why did this person see this opportunity and this person didn't see this opportunity? It's an energetic thing. This is an energy thing, okay? Does that kind of help explain that a little bit? Okay, let me go back specifically to a long-standing pattern of being in debt. Okay, if you have a long-standing pattern of being in debt, what is the long-standing feeling that went along with that? I think maybe we're trying to separate that, oh, no, I feel like this because I'm in debt. Or are you in debt because this is how you feel? You see? You see? They are interconnected. They match. Now, the fake feeling, excuse me, I've been sick, guys. This fake feeling where how can I be abundant when I have 28 cents in my account? I get it. But something has to change, or else you are going to have this long-standing pattern of debt because you have a long-standing feeling of lack. You have a long-standing feeling of frustration. Which of the equations are you going to change faster? I'm sure you've tried to change the debt. I'm sure you've tried to change the financial side. What did you not try? Maybe it's that you haven't tried changing this energy first. This is the magnet. You are the magnet. Now I could go into this whole esoteric tangent on why humans have the ability to do that, but I want to keep this very logical and I want to keep this very simple. Simply like attracts like. And doing the same, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Why do we do the same things over and over again? Well, it's because we think the same things over and over again. And why are we thinking the same things over and over again? It's probably because we're feeling the same things over and over again. Something has to break the cycle. So this feels weird. Yes, this feels weird. We're breaking the cycle. We're doing something different. Why does it feel weird? Because you are literally stimulating different neural pathways in your brain. You are hacking a trail through your brain tissue that you have never walked through before. And that is going to feel weird. And you're going to interpret it as it feels fake. Those are the English words that we use to describe this. But I promise you, it works. It 100% works. Okay, William says that appreciation is more what he can vibe with. You know what? The word doesn't matter. The truth is, whatever feeling you're feeling, you can call it appreciation, you can call it gratitude, you can call it aprecio, you can call it gratitud, you can call it feng shui, you can call it whatever word you want. That feeling is what I want you to feel, okay? Now, I also think that we classify feelings very simple. Like, for example, maybe we say, okay, let's take love, for example. Love, okay. There are a million varieties of love. There are a bajillion. You can love your cat, and you can love pizza, and you can love your wife, you can love your girlfriend. You can have all these different versions of love. You can love yourself. The way you love your parents is differently from the way you love America, okay? And yet we use this one English word. And I'm sure every single one of you will agree that all of those different categories that I named has a different feeling. So will English label this love, but they're different. There's nuances there to it. So as you're trying to access a feeling, like William, you said that appreciation is more what you can vibe with than gratitude. That is totally fine. In fact, I'm going to take it one step further, and maybe we're going to call it something like, this is a pink fuzzy appreciation to distinguish it from the red fiery appreciation. There may not be words to describe the feeling that you're trying to access. I specifically notice this when I'm coaching somebody and they're feeling something a little bit negative. They'll say something like, well, this feels like anger, but it's not really, it's like a sad anger. Or, maybe it's a frustrated anger. So as you're accessing these feelings, as you're trying to elicit something out of you, call it whatever you want. Like I said, this is totally your customization of your brain. So if you want it to be fluffy, or you want it to be loving appreciation, or if you want it to be intense appreciation, you do that, because these emotions are colorful. They have so much variety There's so much depth to it. And I love the point that you're bringing out that some people act really, really vibe. I want to know that you mentioned that word because it is a vibration. It is a frequency that's measurable. So maybe you will vibe with something that somebody else won't. There's reasons for that too. Maybe if you grew up in a religion, or maybe if your mother said, you need to be grateful for this your whole life growing up, you might have a negative trigger to that specific word. It doesn't mean that the feeling is bad. It means that when somebody says, you need to be grateful, your brain goes, and you have a hard time accessing it. So pick a different word, okay? What else? What else? We've been on here for about 45 minutes. Anybody else have any questions that we can talk about? Let's see. Okay. William says he feels a little guilty for not being able to think of anything right now. Oh my God. All right, we're going to talk about guilt for a second because I can rant on guilt all night long. Guilt is an overused feeling that is very rarely worth anything, okay? I have a lot of coaching clients that suffer with guilt over something that they can't do or something that they did a bajillion years ago. I'm going to explain to you what the healthy version of guilt is. Guilt is meant to correct your behavior, okay? Guilt is meant to tell you, ooh, this is a bad thing that you did. Don't do this thing again. So here's a good example of guilt. Let's say you push Granny down the stairs. You should probably feel guilty for that. That probably was not something that you should repeat. That's probably something that you should correct that action. If you punch a little kid in the face, you should probably feel guilty for that because you need to steer back onto the main path. When you're flying down the highway and the highway has those little bumpy things on the side, those little bumpy things on the side are so that when the car accidentally veers just a little bit, you hit those and you go, oh, yeah, okay, let me get back where I'm supposed to go. That is a healthy version of guilt, okay? How can you how can you feel guilty about something that you have never taught your brain how to do? Try feeling guilty. William, I want you to try feeling guilty right now that you don't speak Chinese. Try feeling guilty that you don't speak Russian. How about that? You see, you can't feel guilty for something that you don't know how to do. So here's what people will typically say after that. Well, I should know. I should. Should is a shit word. Oops, I don't know if I can swear on it. I probably, it was my channel. I guess I can. Should is dumb. If you haven't practiced it, how are you supposed to do it? Maybe you were never good at it to begin with. Maybe you used to play the piano when you were 10. Or maybe you took ballet when you were 8 years old and now you're 50. What, you think you're just automatically going to be a ballerina and all that's going to instantly come back? No, guys. No. Our body's out of shape. We're overweight. We're not as flexible as we used to be. Of course, even if you knew how to do it in the past, doesn't mean that today you're automatically going to be able to do it if you've spent 10 years not practicing. Maybe you used to go to the gym and maybe you could bench press 250 pounds. That's great. But if you haven't been to the gym in 15 years, you can't feel guilty about not being able to bench press what you used to be able to do. This is a muscle. This is a skill. This is a path through the jungle. And if you're not constantly using that path, it's going to get grown over, okay? So feeling guilty, I want you to stop and I want you to say, okay, this is brainwashing. This is because my brain has been on autopilot. This is the wrong channel. This is the wrong frequency. I want you to think about that. This technique that I'm teaching you right now is called I think it's called metacognition. It's meta thinking. It's you think about what you're thinking about. Too often we're like, oh, I feel bad about this. And then we're just like feeling bad. Oh, wait a second. I'm in charge here. I'm not going to feel bad about something that I did 25 years ago. I can't change that. I can accept it. I can move on. I can learn from that, but I'm not going to live in the guilt for something that I've already changed, can't change, and I'm going to create more of that today, okay? So, feeling guilty that you're not able to think about anything right, I want you to forgive yourself. I want you to be kind to yourself. Come on, man. You have done the best that you can do with the lack of tools and the lack of knowledge or the lack of practice that you had at the time. If you could have done better, you would have. If you'd have known it was important, you would have, okay? So release these feelings of guilt. Release what isn't serving you well. Because let me tell you something else too. How's that guilt helping? If it's not correcting our action, if it's not teaching us something, it's not useful, okay? All right, give me something else, guys. Give me something else. Give me something else. I'm having fun with this. Come on, give me another question. I'm going to give you a couple seconds. Come on, guys. I know you guys can come up with something. Come on, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on, guys. I know you got something. Come on. Come on, come on. Okay, Steve, any thoughts on getting out of your own way and starting a YouTube channel? Okay, you should go back and watch my YouTube videos from like 2 years ago. Okay, I have no freaking idea what I'm doing with technology. I am the brain hacker. I am not the fashion expert. I am not the technology expert. I can't I can't edit videos. I tried having my recording software automatically edit out the pauses, and that like was wonky. Everybody thought I was AI, which I'm definitely not AI. You know, a lot of times I work off of a script because I've got a lot of data that I want to make sure that I get right. And you know what? Feel the fear and do it anyway. Okay? What is the worst that's going to happen? What is the worst that's going to happen? Honestly, what is the worst that's going to happen? Nobody's going to listen to you? Well, nobody's listening to you now, so what is actually different? Failure? Okay, well, that's a lot of times why somebody doesn't start something is because they're afraid of failure. Maybe the dream is funner than actually doing the work. That's totally fine. So what is the biggest problem? If the biggest problem is being scared, all right, let's talk about being scared. I'll stick to being scared because I personally, from experience, know there are a million reasons why not to start a YouTube channel that could get in the way. But we're going to start with scared. Here's the thing, my friend. Your tribe will find you, okay? There are a few people every now and then that will come along and go, this sounds like bullshit. This lady's crazy. This quantum mumbo jumbo bullshit. Yeah, well, okay, you're not my people. I have personally lived this. I have personally experienced this. I have been teaching this for 22 years. I know what I'm talking about. So if somebody comes along and says, that's bullshit, well, okay, bye. I'm looking for you people. I'm looking for the people who are my tribe, okay? So what are some of the other things that you might be scared of? So there's fear of rejection. There's fear of failure. Okay, fear of failure. Like I said, go back and look at my first videos because they were awful. My scripts were awful. My topics were awful. My ideas were all over the place. I have gotten better. I have gotten ridiculously better. You got to start somewhere. And the good thing about it is that I think probably only like 4 people saw those original videos. So as you get better, more people see you after you're better. It's very rare, I think, that your first video is going to have, 50 billion views. There's probably only your mom and your dad that are going to see the terrible videos. So there's going to be a progression that you have there. Let's see, what else could you be scared of? What are else some of the other scared? Scared of speaking up, scared of being seen. Let's see, scared of being seen. Again, I think probably we could do a lot of, okay, let me tackle this way. Here's the thing. Fear of being seen. It's a fear, and then your brain tries to figure out why, okay? We're going to go back to the logic side. We're going to go back to the analytic side. We're going to go back to the scientific side. If your body is accessing fear, and a lot of people have fear as a baseline. Some people might have low self-esteem, lack, but some people run a lot of fear as their baseline. Remember, your brain is sorting for a match, okay? So if you feel fear, you're going to go, oh, I'm afraid of a dog. Oh, I'm afraid of a YouTube channel. Oh, I'm afraid of a frog. Oh, I'm afraid of lacking. Oh, I'm afraid of failure. Are you afraid of those things, or are you just afraid? Are you just accessing an emotion, a frequency of fear? Now, if I were coaching you, we would explore this from a bunch of different angles, but for the sake of time, somebody who has fear in multiple categories, a lot of times I would probably just assume that the truth is their body is accessing a frequency of fear and their brain is proving them right, pulling information out of the 11 billion bits of information and saying, here you go, here's something to be afraid of, here's something to be afraid of, here's why you're afraid. And are those things making you afraid, or are you just in that state of fear? Okay, so what is the antidote for that? Well, the meta thinking, the metacognition, where you kind of start realizing, okay, wait a second, is this rational? Is this legit? What's the worst that can happen? We can kind of start lodging ourselves away around that. But the other technique is to just also say, and again, there's lots of techniques, because I'm an NLP master practitioner. There's like 300 different techniques that I can use to neutralize fears and angers and whatever other emotions there are. But there is a light switch, okay? So fear, the energy of fear and the energy of love cannot inhabit the body at the same time. They're opposing. They're not similar enough. So you can be scared and you can be angry. Those are a little bit more similar frequencies, but love, gratitude, and fear cannot be in the same body because they're too different. Practice the gratitude exercises then. Practice what are you grateful for? Maybe you could be grateful that you have something that you want to share. Maybe you can be grateful that you have knowledge. Maybe you can be grateful that you have a camera to record things with, and start with those baby feelings of gratitude. I'm going to suggest that all of you start with gratitude, appreciation, if gratitude is the trigger word, thankfulness. I want you to start with those feelings because you're going to start strengthening that muscle. Okay. Can this process be used to fix chronic anger? Yes. As I said, though, as I'm coaching people, there's a lot of reasons for anger, and whether this works is probably going to depend on what the cause is. I've had clients that have chronic anger because of abuse in the past, and that is a deep-seated trauma that might require a little bit more finesse than just flipping the switch and thinking something better. There are some great other techniques for that. Again, as you say, chronic anger, I would also kind of say that potentially, depending on your past, depending on if there was some sort of trauma, if there's a legit reason, I'm going to tip on that for a second there too. Sometimes anger is legit. Sometimes anger is a legit feeling. Actually, all of our feelings are legit feelings. The problem is sometimes I think we get a little bit stuck in those legit feelings. Hold on a second. Okay, so let's say somebody's rage comes from a massive betrayal, okay? That rage is linked to the massive betrayal, let's say. And you will need to process that differently rather than just thinking a better, different thought. Like I said, there's a lot of different techniques, a ton of different techniques for changing it. And a lot of it depends on where did it come from and how did it arrive. If it comes from some sort of trauma, sometimes it's literally just there festering in the background constantly until we find some way to give it some sort of resolution. Let's see, what were your first conscious creations? Let's see, great imposter syndrome. Feel called to talk about natural. Okay. Okay. Let me touch on the imposter syndrome in just a second. What were some of the first of my conscious creations, and how did you go about learning you could manifest? So, this is actually a super interesting story that I could do a whole video on. I first started learning about manifesting in the early 2000s. It was about when the law of attraction came out. And at the same time, I had gotten certified with the neuro-linguistic programming. That's the tool that I use, the NLP. If you're not really familiar with that, like Tony Robbins is trained in that. In fact, I was trained by the same people that trained Tony Robbins all those decades ago. It's a powerful tool for transformation. And so I was just fascinated by how I could take a client that was, biting their nails and eliminate it in one heartbeat. I had some very serious health issues that I healed myself. And so I was learning through practical experience the power of the mind and how awesome the power of the mind was. And I had these examples of like, wow, that is fascinating how the brain could do that. The funny thing is, at the time, I was in a religious cult. I was born into a ridiculously strict religion that did not encourage education, did not encourage wealth. In fact, everybody should work as little as possible so that they can serve God as much as possible. I came from a very, very, very weird circumstance. So there was a little bit of a conflict. There was a conflict for creating and manifesting wealth and creating everything that you want to be, when at the same time you have this religious framework that says, so there was a bit of a conflict there. But at the same time, I was like, well, wait a second, this makes sense. So I spent some years actually a little bit in this conflict. In fact, I would even, okay, so this is what my brain was doing. I'm cherry picking information to prove me right. So I belong to a cult. And so instead of saying, oh my gosh, I belong to a cult, my brain cherry picks information and says, see, this scientific information of the law of attraction is proof that the Bible is true, because Jesus says, ask and you shall receive. Because the Bible says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will tell this mountain to go from here to there, and it will. Because the Bible says, your faith has made you well. And as I'm on this scientific journey in psychology, I'm like, oh my gosh, look, this is true. This is true. This is true. So those are kind of some funny stories about my journey, because I've actually had a ton of funny stories. So I will kind of sum it up, though, to say I started practicing in small ways. And because I was in a cult, as I was learning these principles, I thought, see, this is how God answers prayers. See, this is how God blesses us. See, right? Except, in the religion is like, okay, so this is how God blesses us because we're the right religion, except God's blessing atheists, God's blessing other people. And so my brain was kind of like, whoa, hold on, wait a second. Like, okay. So fast forward, I'll just kind of sum this up a little. So fast forward, I ended up in a disaster situation. I do have my life story on my channel about losing everything. I'm pretty sure I have it on here. Actually, I'm going to go back and check because I think I put it on the Spanish channel. I might not have my life story on here. So when I was 38 years old, I got kicked out of the cult. I was excommunicated. And I lost everything. I lost over 50 family members. My mother hasn't talked to me since 2014. I lost my kids, I lost my house, I lost my job, I lost everything because I left the religion. Like everything. And I want to say that I want you guys to know, actually I should do a whole video on this. I want you guys to know that when I'm talking about this, I am speaking from personal experience because I literally lost everything. I came from a cult that did not encourage education, that women were pretty much useless, that, half the people in my family, I don't even know, graduated from high school. No one probably made more than, I don't know, $40,000 for families of five, $50,000. I mean, we did not come from any sort of financial perks. And when I was 38 years old, I lost everything. Every human that I knew was in the cult. So I had no friends. I didn't even go to public school. I was homeschooled. So I didn't even have the ability to call and say, hey, remember me? We were in kindergarten together. Like my whole world was a cult. You don't have to feel sorry for me because actually this is the best thing that possibly ever could have happened to me. Because it was as though the universe said, you know what? There's something bigger waiting for you. So first of all, you need to prove it to yourself. I'm going to be honest, there was quite a bit of time there because I even lost my kids because of the cult, where I was sitting there thinking, why the hell do I even want to keep going? I mean, like for what? Like nobody knows me. I don't know anything. I was penniless. I had a backpack. Literally, that was the only thing that I had. And the experience, the experience of having taught law of attraction, having believed in law of attraction, was literally the only thing that I had in my favor. I don't have no 401k. I have nothing. I don't have savings. I don't have anything. And checking out of life was my option. Or figuring shit out to thrive was my option B. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna try option B because if option B doesn't work, I always have option A. I'm always the logical option person here. So I sat down and I had tons of limiting beliefs. I had tons of, I can't do this, I'm 38, I have no education, I have no job, I have no experience, I have, like all those thoughts are going through my head because guess what, guys, they're true. They were true. But I knew that if I kept believing those, I was screwed. I was going to be screwed. I understood the power of the mind. I understood NLP. And I knew that just because reality was proving this to be true doesn't mean it is true. I don't believe that there is a universal truth. I think there's a version of what your brain has proved to be true for you. And if you don't like that, you can change that. It was, I'm not gonna lie, it was freaking intense work. Because plan A, option A, was my backup plan. It was either figure this out or I wouldn't be here to be doing these videos. It was soul searching. It was freaking hard. Do you know how hard it was to be optimistic when you just your whole freaking life just blew up? Yeah, I know how hard that is because I sat there and I would try it for 5 seconds and then I'd cry. And then I'd try it to freaking be grateful for something for 2 freaking seconds and then I'd cry. But I stuck with those 2 seconds. And then those 2 seconds were 3 seconds, and then those 3 seconds were 5 seconds, and then those 5 seconds were 20 seconds. And I knew that my life depended on shifting my emotional state. Because that was the one thing that I did know for sure. That if I couldn't change my emotional state, I was going to be screwed. So, long story short, the happy version of the story is, in 6 years, I managed to create enough wealth to retire to Ecuador. I now have 40 acres in Ecuador. I have a 6,000 square foot health retreat. I have a fully organic farm. I do plant medicines. Hi, Kelly, I love you too. I recreated my life from literally nothing, guys. And so when I tell you, I know how hard it is, I know how hard it is. I'm not lying because I've been there. And when I tell you you can fix it, when I tell you you can fake it and it works, I'm right because I was there. I was so in the dumps, I very easily, with the flip of a coin, could have not been here. It was so bad. But you can do it. Practice, 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 practice. Okay, we hit the hour mark and I really had fun with this. I really had fun. I hope I didn't go on too many tangents, and you guys need to step up to the plate next time. I only had 3 people helping me out. I'm sitting here all like, oh shit, what do I say next? Okay, so I'm going to do this regularly. I'm going to make this a regular thing. I will be back next Thursday at 8 p.m. I'm going to say New York time because Lois mentioned that I said Eastern Standard Time, and I just assumed that Eastern Standard Time meant New York time. So, or maybe it's just Eastern time. Anyway, 8 p.m. Florida, New York time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific California time. Unless you're in a different part of the globe like Canada, in which case I can't help you there. Anyway, so guys, loved doing this. I had so much fun. Come prepared with comments next week. If you're starting to do these appreciation exercises, these gratitude exercises, and I want to know, share what's happening, because as soon as somebody says, hey, I'm having a hard time with this, that triggers something. It gives me something to say that maybe I didn't expect. Like when you said that you had an easier time with appreciation versus gratitude, it totally put me on a tangent of why that's true. So your comments actually stimulate my brain to spurt more things out. So, okay, guys, this was awesome. I love you guys, and I have more videos to record and more videos to upload, and we will be back here live next Thursday. Alrighty? All right, talk to you guys soon. Mwah. Bye.